Sheila got I'm repping the brand today. So are you.
You are? I've got a whole box of those t-shirts that I'm like, what am I going to do with these?
Oh, well,
And I just got new hats in and everything else. So
swag
yeah.
guy.
Well, I mean, I think it's been interesting, and we'll jump into the whole, my whole new role at GWA and
Oh
helping
yeah.
all that. But part of it is we've done an incredible job before you and I even started Flex Uncensored. You did an incredible job growing your brand, right? And I think we've been able to grow the Flex Uncensored brand through,
Hmm.
the hats and the shirts. And,
Hmm.
it's funny.
Good
Caleb
work.
was at GWA and Immersive, Caleb Parker, and he's like, man, I've been waiting to get one of these hats forever. Did you bring me one? I'm like, duh, of course I brought you one. And then
Nice.
I took him a beanie too, and he was posting pictures wearing the hat and the beanie on LinkedIn. And I was like, hey.
Hmm.
So just trying to figure out something for GWA that can
I
kind of
know.
push.
GWA is a hard brand to rep.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So we're doing our first global event, right? We're doing our
Yeah.
first international
International.
event in Mexico
Yeah.
City. And it's so funny. People are like, "Oh, I thought the global part was just a word in there just to oversell it." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I guess it kind of has been, but
Yeah.
we're trying to change and grow that. And this is hot off the press, literally just booked last night, but so I'm doing a safari in South Africa in August. And I fly into Johannesburg and,
Is
and
this a
so,
bucket list thing? Where did this come from?
excuse me,
Is this a bucket list item? Where did
safari
this?
has always been a bucket list thing. So I got a call last week or a text and then a call from Ben Wright, who was in Australia for the last 2.5 weeks with Instant.
Oh,
And so he
nice.
was out there meeting with stuff. And so he connected me with one of his partners with Instant out there. And so I had a call with him last week. And this is how ignorant I consider myself pretty cultured and intelligent, but there's times where I've surprised myself. So I talked to Daniel with Instant, and he's like, "Hey, I was just talking to Ben, and we'd love for you to come present at FWA in August." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm already going to be in South Africa, so it sounds awesome." And
Right next door.
so,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 30 hours from
Mhm.
freaking Johannesburg to get to Brisbane because you still have to go all the way across Australia, right? It's not even can't even be
Yeah.
on the.
Have them beam you
Uh,
in. Wait, you were on the panel last year when we got beamed in.
Yeah. So I booked last night. So I'm flying from Johannesburg to Brisbane for FWA. So it's a bucket list deal to go and visit Sydney and Melbourne and all
Okay.
that stuff, and then also get a chance to. I mean, we've got so many Australian
Yep. You
flex
can see Brad.
industry.
Kane was
Yeah,
just there. I caught up with Kane a couple weeks ago and he went to New Zealand for his triathlon and then he went to Australia and he got to see a bunch
yeah,
of spaces and saw Brad and yeah, it was great.
yeah. He said he had a great time, but
I
yeah,
think
and I
he
know.
kind of wanted to move there. He was like, there's no skiing though, like in the summer. But he's like, there's an it's what is it, Bondi Beach? Is that what it's called? What's the beach called? He said the ocean, there's a hotel where the ocean fills the pool.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the waves from the ocean fill the
I
pool.
don't think I can afford that.
Yeah.
I'll Google it and watch it on YouTube or something.
Stop.
Sounds expensive to me.
Maybe it's
Sounds
public,
expensive.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Kane isn't that bougie either, I wouldn't think.
Yeah. So yeah, I think going back to just the opportunity to just continue growing the brands personally and professionally, just it's just been amazing to see if you put your name out there and you just continue, loving on people and sharing opportunities. And I think that's part of when you and I spoke a couple weeks ago that I think we've been really bad at, right? Is putting our names out there from the opportunity of going, hey, we can help you, right? We
Yeah.
can help you with some of the business decisions you're making, whether you're a startup or an existing business. And I think that's part of the challenge that I gave you for us to do better this year was, to help people realize that, part of our goal behind this podcast, our desire is to serve and educate people, but also to do it on a personal, individual level as well. And quite often, I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, you would actually come look at our real estate," or "Oh, Jamie would actually help us with our marketing." And I'm like, Well, duh, that's what we do for a living. I mean,
We are
this
not professional podcasters.
we don't make anything podcasting, right? And that's a decision we made from day one, right? When
Yeah.
you asked, well, how do you want to monetize this? And I said, I don't. Is, the goal is to really just serve and educate people. And so, and I knew that would lead to opportunities, but I think that's my goal for this year, is for us to really spend more time pouring into our listeners individually, as we can help them make better, different decisions based off of just asking questions or sharing our own experiences that we've had or that we've seen other people have.
Yeah. I mean, we have a unique macro view on what's going on in the industry. And the more you get involved in the GWA, the more that is, you do anyway. You know more people in the industry than anyone else. But I think that'll probably be even more amplified with your GWA role. Well, so it's an interesting year. What are you optimistic about this year?
Well, I mean, let's just talk about the news. I mean, obviously
No, no,
we
no, no, no. We're not
had.
talking about the news. In
Oh,
business, what are we optimistic about?
no, and I
Co-working.
think that's what I meant, is we had
The
Will Sanford
industry
on.
news. Okay, great. I was
Yeah,
like, no, no, no,
that's
no. We're
funny.
not talking about the
No,
news.
and come on, you know me better than that.
Great.
Low hanging fruit, but
CBRE.
not fruit I'm going to take. But
Yeah.
I mean, from the standpoint of
CBRE.
just, we had Will on, Yardy with the
Yeah.
Desk Pass and the Hubble acquisition. I don't know if you saw it yet, but just this morning, both Jamie with CBRE/Industrious and Brendan with Fifth Wall were on, I don't know, MSNBC or
Oh,
one of
nice.
those
I saw somebody
one of
post
those
about it. I didn't see it
platforms.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
so people keep asking me, so what does that mean? Will Gutierrez with Premier asked me. I talked with Chia earlier, formerly of Verizon, asked me earlier,
Oh, Lucia.
and
Wait, Lucia's not with Verizon anymore? Ooh.
no, no,
Okay, good.
hot off the press. Not
Yeah.
really. It's been since
Okay.
September.
Old news. Okay.
But either way, they asked me, so what do you think that news, is it positive or what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I think the fact that we're seeing people of that caliber make that kind of investment, and part of it too, CBRE's got money, but they're not just going to throw money around.
Yeah.
They represent the clients from the landlord side that are going, okay, obviously this has to be part of our offering, part of our
I
portfolio.
like to think they're that strategic. I mean, I like to think that's
Well,
an indicator. I mean, they already had 240 into the deal. I
yeah,
think that's right. Yeah. And then they get Jamie Hodari, they get the team, which is pretty
yeah.
spectacular. Yeah.
Well, and I think back to your comment on strategy, is it comes a point where strategy is looking at the future and going, oh, I think there's going to be opportunity here.
Yeah.
And I think you have facts, which is where they are, right? When they made the initial investment in trying to roll out HANA, was strategy, right? They were trying
Yeah, they
to
did Hana.
to get there to the
Yeah.
market, when they even said, hey, you know what? We missed the mark. Let's invest in Industrious and have them pick
Yeah.
up
But they don't have a
HANA.
flex team per se. I mean, who's the flex team?
No, and that's just it. And then
That's my
but
only
it becomes fact
concern.
when you've got 5 years of post-COVID, COVID and post-COVID experience going,
Yep.
this is what our landlords want. This is what our enterprise wants, because keep in mind, they also represent a lot of enterprise corporations and overall, that side of the business. And so they have enough data, right? Back to our science meets art. This is science. It's not art. They're not going, hey, we think this is where the ball's going, or the
Yep.
puck, right? They know that that's where it's going. The question is, how much are we going to invest in it? So back to your question is, I mean, just the fact that we're having decisions like those made
Yeah.
at a large
Yeah. Well, and Jamie's
real
role
estate.
seems like it will infiltrate, a pretty big business line, which to me is positive. So instead of putting up a flex team, you're saying, okay, we're going to bring Jamie Hodari on and he's going to run this business unit.
Yeah.
So his thinking will permeate everything we do. So we'll see.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm super positive going to 2025, right? From multiple standpoints. But I mean, just we're finally seeing people make some of those decisions. We're, back to even Mexico and the immersive that we're doing there. When I was there in May, I just went, it was my mother's birthday and I had a couple extra days. I flew in early and was just going to honestly look at one or two of Javier's EOS spaces, and they walked me through the spaces, and it was mind blowing because, like LinkedIn or Roku, we walk through their space on the EOS floor, and they have like, 700, 800, 1,000 square feet in which they have private offices in. They've got conference facilities. They've got a think tank room. They've got open seating. And you're just going, man, this is what we've been talking about with the enterprise side of stuff. And, it happened. I ended up going to 5 of theirs locations, and they had it in multiple locations. Right. And then they had, one location that was predominantly more, open, collaborative, true, what I consider co-working, right? With the open desking and memberships and all that stuff. And so you start seeing that evolution of stuff. I mean, just like I did when I was at the Entrepreneur Center in Dubai and experienced that and seeing that they were on a further scope. And that's kind of what I'm excited about going to Australia and seeing, okay, what is going on there? Because we've had guests on, obviously, have talked about those experiences. We have relationships with, some of those operators that you're going, man, you're taking down 60 to 90,000 square foot buildings, and, just their overall offerings and ability to just deploy a product are incredible. Right. And so, I think this year you're going to continue to see those pieces come together here in the US, at least.
How do you
I
think
think
we're
we're going
going to
to,
overcome the challenge of 10.5% interest rates with the SBA?
yeah, I mean, well, I think interest rates are going to continue to come down. Well, part of it is, if we're even back up, currently the SBA won't even finance office suites. So I think that's the first hurdle is now, and we're experiencing this with a group we're working with
Yes,
together,
there
is
are
we're
some
having to,
creative solutions,
yeah,
though. That one's going to get
yeah,
done. Yep.
yeah, for sure. But I think some of the new administration will make different decisions based off being pro business. So hopefully we see a change in the SBA period.
Yeah.
And I think we'll continue to see interest rates come down. But let's be honest, is I didn't know how people were doing it at 13%, 14% interest rates. And that's, I think, where you and I come in, where we can help people go, okay, well, do these numbers really work? Or, you need to be more, I guess, careful with how you lay out these spaces, right? You need to have more density. And I think those are all parts of how do we avoid pitfalls that others have made or had. It's funny, I was having lunch with a couple operators here in Dallas who operate in Texas, and part of the conversation was around team spaces.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, they're awesome when they're full, but then when
Yeah.
they're empty, you're like, wow, that really hurts.
Mhm.
And so one's like, we're going to continue doing it because we think there's a need. And one's like, we're never going to do those again because it's just not worth the
Yeah.
risk.
Stress.
And so I think we're going to continue to see people find their niches and figure out who they're trying to service and why and how. And I think that's what I'm excited about this year, is kind of piece of the puzzle finally coming together that we've been experiencing.
In terms of more like product market fit and people putting out products that really work and that people want.
Or people even understanding what product, who
Oh,
are they?
okay.
What are they? What are they trying to do?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's part of what we experience is we have conversations with people like, oh, we're going to be an event space. I'm like, you're in the suburbs of a secondary city. Do you really think that that's going to be the most beneficial thing for you? And I think that's a big part of it, is really sitting down with people and asking the hard questions. I mean, we had a great guest with Brian Elliott on, and that's what we discussed, is he asked the hard questions.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
sometimes it's going, we need to care enough about the people we're sitting with or the industry or even the overall clientele that's going to be using the space to ask the hard questions so we can really deploy the proper product for what it is we're trying to achieve and what's going to help the industry and what makes sense. It doesn't help us to go out there and saturate the market with product that then's going to, and we've seen it in markets, and we've talked about it before, right? There's people that, open 3-4 locations in the same submarket. I mean, we saw it in parts of Columbus. We've seen it in parts of Austin. We've seen it in parts of Denver, where everyone flocked to the same submarket. It's like, okay, y'all have all taken a market share that was enough for a couple of you, and now there's 6 of you, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got 6
Pretty
locations
similar
that have opened up.
offerings, kind of generic. Yep.
Yeah.
Product market fit. Yep. It is. And I think that's why you and I value, to your point, like having more individual conversations. Somebody popped into the Facebook group and said, how much can I expect to make on 12,000 feet and how much will it cost me to build out? And the range of input was outrageous. You get people who are in some tiny market and they're like, well, we started small and we spent $2,500 to, start our space. And I'm not, that can work, but people have to realize, like, what is their market? What's the need? Where's the gap? What does that look like in terms of then what is the product? What do the numbers look like based on market characteristics, rent, build out expense? So it's really a unique scenario for each person. And one of the things that I'm working with people on right now, people who wanna expand or wanna grow is it's the whole, like, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Like, we don't have enough leads, we're not converting enough tours, and I can immediately see the gaps, right? I
Right.
just kinda glance at the sales funnel and I can see it, and they can't see it. And some of it's positioning, some of it's user experience, like the sales funnel. So, really helping people, sort of get that objective look at their business, and they have to wanna hear it. I mean, we were talking with Brian about that, though they have to be open. They have a story they think they're telling, and oftentimes they're not, and so they think they have a product and a story that they're marketing, but it's not what they're doing, and before you expand, you have to really, get clear on that and have all the systems in place to make that work and convert.
Yeah, and the beauty of it, those are things you can recover from and
You
change,
can.
right? But
Yep.
the things I tell people is three things you can't recover from are a bad location, a bad real estate deal, and a bad layout, right? I mean, and we've got people that are dear friends of ours that are in that position now, and they're having it. Luckily, we've seen products come out like Rooms products,
Yeah.
and Very's got their modular walls, and you've got some things that can help, but ultimately they're costly, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you want
And you
to
have to have
avoid
enough
those.
time left on a lease to make those
Yeah,
investments and get that ROI. Yeah.
yeah,
But I
so you
mean,
want to
it's a
avoid
good.
those pitfalls from the beginning. And then the
Yeah.
second part is what you were just talking about is there's things you can go in and change and see immediate funnels open up. You can see immediate opportunities with bringing on the right, I guess I would call it service provider if you want to call it, whether it be marketing funnels or some of
Mhm.
these aggregators slash brokerage, flex brokerage providers, or how are you marketing your
Yep.
space? Just different things that you're so good at. I mean, you obviously had a ton of success, and we briefly talked about it, but we didn't talk about it in detail. But your mail
Yeah.
challenge, right?
Yes. Our moneymaker
Talk
mail
about that.
challenge. Yep.
I mean, talk about that because I know that made a big difference. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize there was this many people. I knew it was going to be successful, but not like it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, we're both kind of saying a little bit of the same thing. I mean, you work with people who are starting and who are expanding. My focus has always been, because you and I share a similar passion, exactly what you just said. There are things you cannot fix after the fact. And I'm so, like, terrified on behalf of people opening co-working spaces that they're going to get it wrong, that I've been putting all my energy towards people who are starting spaces. And then I realized, there's a lot of people who are running spaces that feel like they're doing fine, but they're could level up, and they, maybe are exposed to some sort of industry benchmark, like, okay, I feel like I should have more revenue, more profit. What do I do to get there? And so, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something to serve these guys. And I'm passionate about mail because I think it's people who are willing to do the work. It's an opportunity that if you kind of, didn't optimize your space in a build out, it's a revenue stream that you can layer on that can kind of, what's the word, like, compensate for, maybe a smaller space or a space that's not as dense or doesn't have as many offices. So anyway, yeah, I mean, so I was really excited by the reception of existing operators who wanted to figure this out. And I think, the male partners who bring a lot of leads, they bring the leads, but there are a lot of operational factors. I mean, when it comes down to it, the business is hospitality, it's operations. So, there's a lot that goes into kind of getting the, operational procedures and the marketing if you want to do your own organic marketing in place. So yeah, it was really fun to have a group together. And you see this in the, GWA, and I see it with the operators that I work with. some of the value of that challenge was not just the revenue that people started to create from putting these programs in place, but the connection with other operators. So we did,
Yeah.
live calls every week, and people love to hear because everybody's kind of operating in a vacuum, right? And that's why the GWA is so important. And going to conferences is because you don't really, you just don't have a pulse on what's happening with other operators. You and I do, but the average operator is kind of operating in a silo. So that was a, good opportunity for people to see, okay, what is everybody else up to? What are they seeing? What are they doing? So, yeah, it was a real win. We'll do it again this year.
Yeah, and I think you said that best, right? How many are operating in a silo by themselves, not only internally but externally, right? They haven't even walked in any of their competition space, right? They don't even know who their competitor is and what. Let me rewind. A lot of times they know who their competitor is, but they don't even know what they're offering. So how do you sell against someone that you don't understand? Why have you not walked through the space and toured it, and even looked at them and been like, hey, I've got opportunities that I can't service because either I don't have team offices, or I don't have any private offices, or I don't have event space. I mean, there's so many opportunities to collaborate out there that I think
Yep.
people are missing out on. And it's a lot of times it's just because they're busy. I get it, but you have to be willing to get out of your space and understand what the environment around you is doing.
Yep. 100%. Okay. What are you most excited about for immersive in Mexico?
It's been a full-time job trying to just build relationships. I mean, you said it really well. I've got a lot of really good relationships in North America, Canada, being the US and Canada, right? But, going down into Mexico and then, trying to pull people up from Central and South America, that's been a feat for sure. And so luckily I've had an incredible buy-in from Javier and his entire team at EOS. I mean, Laura's been amazing, and Andrea and Eunice at helping kind of reach out to people that they know. But quite honestly, you'd be surprised and wouldn't be surprised at the same time. I mean, I've spent hours on LinkedIn sending messages to random people I don't even know and being like, I would love to have you here. And we've had to put out videos. I mean, obviously Zach is great at the videos, but we've had to put out videos where I'm like, I need you to Google Translate. And so he's used your favorite chat GPT to change, and I'll
The
send you some of
captions.
those. But I mean, yeah. And he's done an incredible job at it, but just trying to build something new, right? I mean, in the conversations I've had other than EOS, there's only one conversation I've had with anyone that's been to GWA before. And he's been a couple times. And other than that, we're having to create a whole new offering in a whole different language. That's even part of the discussion. So the venue holds 80 people. And we've got, I guess, 20 to, I'm expecting probably 20, 25 people to make the trip from the US and Canada.
Yep.
Shout out to Lexi and Kane, who's they're
Yep.
they're taking they're going to do their annual meeting there rather than the annual ski trip. So that's going to be great to have them there. But part of it too is how do we, we had to go through, okay, we're doing this program in Spanish or English. And so, there's most Mexicans speak English, but not all of them do. And
Yep.
it's also their country. So we've decided that we're going to do translator headphones for the English speaking people that show up for the
Interesting.
conference. And
Okay.
so, and that's even been interesting from that standpoint, from a sponsorship standpoint. Most of our sponsors, are coming from English
Yep.
speaking the US or the UK or Canada. And they're going, well,
How's this gonna
what
go
do
down? Yep.
and so we've had to kind of play our relationships there and be like, look, we just need you to, to trust us and be in partnership with us, even if we can't stick one of your salespeople up there, right? Even if, it looks different than it normally
Yep.
does. And so, I mean, I think that's been a big part, is just trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. And for me, the hardest part stepping into the new role has been, I, I have an awesome team, right? Which is
Yep.
most of them are leftovers from when I mean, you hired them on, but they don't speak the language, right?
Mhm.
And so it's so difficult. And so they're doing an incredible job supporting. But again, the EOS team's been incredible there. But I think that's the exciting part, is how do we continue growing our reach and our brand further outside of what we've normally done.
Got it.
But in addition to that, we've talked about it. I mean, I think this year is going to be awesome because, we're going to do 3 immersives.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
So
Okay, so
yeah.
immersive in June.
So yeah, we're going to do San Francisco in early June,
Okay, I
right?
wasn't sure if that was public.
So
Yep,
yeah, it'll be the first week of June is what we're aiming for, which is right after all the kids get out of school, but going into summer
yep,
and the
right
weather is
before for
great.
us, so that's perfect. Yep.
Yeah. And so San Francisco, so that'll tap into our West Coast overall, I was going to say fan base, but we'll tap into
You
our
fancier.
membership base.
Yep,
And people that wouldn't normally make the commute, right? With Brian Elliott, we just had
yep,
he's not going to travel, or we're going to have to pay him to travel in other circumstances. And so we experienced that in New York really,
yeah.
really heavily. People that were like, okay, yeah, I can jump in a Uber or jump on the subway or a bus to get there. And then we're going to do Chicago. I've got the contract on my desk to sign, and that's going to
Okay.
be mid-October.
Mid-October. Yep.
And then we're going to do Atlanta in the first week of December.
Ooh,
So
nice.
that'll cover the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I mean, Atlanta's such a great market.
Yeah, I haven't been to Atlanta in ages, so I will for sure be there.
Yeah, there's some great operators there. With Rome is
Yep.
based there,
I
obviously.
mean, there's a lot of
Um,
operators in Atlanta. It's a big,
yeah,
I mean, great independent, yes, multi-site operators, independent operators. I think there's a lot of diversity in operators, so that'll be really
yeah.
fun.
Ramon and Thrive is there. The real
Yep.
estate director, Michael Beretta for IWG is there. So they've got their number 18 and they've got space. They've done a great job with that rollout.
Operators
And
there
then,
that have been through our startup school and that I coach with, so
yeah,
it'll be fun.
yeah, Wesley and OFS are based there, and so
Oh yeah.
so we'll have a great year, and just trying to figure out how do we continue really driving value, right? And I think obviously you were in this role as executive director for a while and did an incredible job within. It's a different world today, and it's just trying to figure out how do we continue driving value. I think that's the biggest thing that we've been trying to figure out. I think we've done a great job at being a place where people come together to see each other
Yep.
and spend time together. And we've had great content over the years, but there's more and more content that people can find online, right? The one thing you can't replace is the
Yeah,
ability
yeah,
to
yeah.
interact with each other, the
100%.
ability to touch and feel and see spaces, and have conversations to why did you do that? Why does it work? And you can't replace that over video or certainly any type of digital print
You know
without
what?
actually experiencing it.
I don't think I told you this, but Chico put 5 or 6 members of his team in our community manager program. And we had him on the podcast, but I think probably it was like connecting at GWA and I got to connect with them in person and have some conversations. And so yeah, they were like, yeah, we want to see what you're up to and we want to connect with other community managers. And
Yeah, and I
but
mean, he's
but
such a
I
great
think it was the
example.
in-person, connection that kind of
Yeah.
flipped them on that and said, yeah, let's give it a try.
Well, he's such a great example because he just started showing up. Right? I
I
didn't know
know.
who he was, and I certainly was like, "How many spaces do you have, and where are you based?" And and I shared this with him, but we literally rewrote the bylaws to add another board member seat, and he was the reason around it.
Oh, he's
Is
on
we'd
the
already
board
voted
now.
in the other seats, and yeah, so he's officially on the board,
Oh, I love
and so brings a lot of a different view of it from a diversity standpoint, from the standpoint of his product offering. And he's just, I mean, he's gone all in. I mean, he showed up in Phoenix with an entire,
I know. What was their sales
entourage.
trip?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know he's doing the same thing for Juicy. I know he's actually speaking at Juicy as well. And so, he's a great example of someone that's all in and trying to learn as much as
Yeah.
he can. I know they've done some other industry stuff inside of Flex and outside of it. I know he's been to some prop tech stuff. He's been to some
Interesting.
different conferences. And so, that's people that are continually learning and building. And I think he's just done a great job of creating a team. And that's because he's doing stuff like you just said, is he's investing in his team,
Yeah.
um and they're committed to him because of it.
They totally are. They
Yeah.
love it. They're hilarious. And so, yeah, energized and yeah, just aligned, which is really fun. And it's fun to have that energy at the conferences. So I'm excited
Yeah.
this year.
Well,
Okay.
and again,
What
that's
are
something that Oh, sorry. I think that's something you do really well too, is helping with the staffing side of stuff, right? Because that's a great example of the hospitality being extended to your own team, right? And I tell people all the time, if you want to have your team offer hospitality, you need to give them that same experience. And like going back to Phoenix, I mean, they stayed in a mansion in Scottsdale, right? And so it was a whole experience for him that they want to be at the top of the team. I don't know
Yeah.
how he picks who goes, but some of
Oh, it's
it's merit
incentive
based.
based. It's whoever
Yeah,
sells the most.
yeah.
Yep.
And so that's going to drive them to want to do that. And
Yeah.
so it's like and your ability to see how his team functions and have these conversations allows for you to take that to other people
Yeah.
and be able to like, look, this is what we've seen work and this is why it's worked, and build off of that.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun. Okay. Your top 3 flex markets for 2025.
Ooh, that's a good one. Be more specific, like in the US
Yeah,
and where.
when you get yes, in the US. Like, you get an operator who you're working with to find space, and they say, "I wanna look in these locations." Which ones are you excited about? Without,
And I'll tell you,
without giving away any
yeah,
client, secrets.
yeah, and not just because I'm from here, but Texas continues to
Mm,
be a
okay.
great spot.
The whole
You know,
state or particular markets?
I mean, really, there's opportunity in the entire state. I mean, I think Dallas has obviously gone. I think that news came out that Dallas surpassed New York for most flex operations. So I think Dallas is getting a bit saturated, although there's still pockets, right? People have kind of avoided Fort Worth for the most part, and there's a different culture out there, but there's still a lot of money and opportunity and places to go there. I think Austin continues to be a great place to go and, you know, offer different product type. I think that's a big part of it. The suburbs, I mean, of Austin are crushing it. And I think part of that is those suburbs are going to continue to spill further south into San Antonio. And I think to me, San Antonio is kind of a sleeper where it's not a super sexy dynamic
Mhm.
market, but there is a lot of
There's
opportunity,
demand.
especially as you see how many Latins are living in San Antonio and doing business in Latin America. They've just moved their family for personal reasons, safety, and just opportunity for education and some different things. And so I think San Antonio is kind of a sleeper. Houston, I'll tell you, Houston's always been an interesting market to me from the standpoint of it's so international, it's so big, but they don't have zoning, and a lot of people don't realize this. And so,
Totally. I remember we've talked about that
yeah,
before, probably. I remember the
it's
first time I
trying to,
went to Houston, I was like, "What's
yeah,
happening here?"
yeah, exactly. And so I think there's some opportunity there, but it's a little
Mhm.
harder to find the needle in the haystack of where the right place to go is. But still, there's a lot of opportunity there. I still continue to love Phoenix and Salt Lake City, and some of
Salt
those.
Lake.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, and you get this too, right? Because of your time in Tahoe and everything else. I think there's opportunity for people that want to have a lifestyle
Yeah.
where they get to do things they enjoy, and the same thing at the same time as offering their families opportunities to really flourish. And part of it too is those airports are getting bigger, right? Especially with Salt
Yep.
Lake City, right? And Phoenix has always been a big market, but I think the quality of life portion just continues to get stronger and stronger as we have to deal with more headwinds of whatever type. And then kind of going up towards the Northeast. I mean, Nashville continues to
Nashville's a
to do
fascinating
great.
market. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was scrolling through social media yesterday, and I've spent enough time in Franklin and stuff where it's like there was a couple driving through these neighborhoods in South Nashville. They're like, "What do these people do?" And I mean, these I mean, they're just palaces of homes. And you're just like, and it always does. I always do wonder that, but a lot of it is same thing. It's quality of life. It's
Yeah.
opportunity to experience the Southern quality of life while not being in the middle of a big city.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, all of Florida it's nuts. I can't wrap my mind around because there's so many little pockets of cities up and down the coast
Yeah.
that a lot of the problems we've had is finding good real estate that makes sense.
Yep.
And it's just because it doesn't exist. But I think it's one of those, if you build, they will come type situations, but you got to find the right real estate in the right place and all those things. Right. And I still, New York is amazing to me. And when I say New York, I think New York City is a kind of a cluster at this point. There's a lot of stuff. Everyone's gone there. But if you go from New York out, right, Connecticut, New Jersey,
Yeah.
upstate New York, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of opportunity where people can live in the suburbs of New York City, as I'll
Yeah.
call it, and commute in
Have
as
access. Yeah.
needed. I think it's a big opportunity that the people that you and I both know, that we have worked with have done really well there. I
Yep.
mean, I just had a conversation with W Executive Suites yesterday with Jamie, and we discussed. She moved up there to
Oh,
New
that's right.
Haven,
Yeah.
and she's going, okay, we need to drop a dot here and figure out how to grow from here. And so I think there's more and more of those kind of opportunities, and they moved for quality of life too, right? She, if you remember, she enjoys skiing and getting up
Oh, that's right. Yep.
into Vermont and that kind of stuff. But at the
Yep.
same time, there's a lot of opportunity there. But yeah, I mean, I gave you
Okay.
more
A
than
lot of
three,
markets to
but
like. I know. Interesting.
well, there's just so much opportunity when you look at the country. It's like, you know, we're working on deals outside of Charlotte in the suburbs. We're
Yep.
like, man, this is such a cool development and it's
Yeah.
such a cool opportunity. And they're moving. Talk about a big move. They're moving out
It's a big
of
move. Yeah.
Brooklyn
I know, but such
into
an opportunity. That's so. Yeah, we have a mutual group that we're working with. You on the real estate side, and I'm helping them with their numbers. And yeah, today they were like, "Okay, when do we need to start pre-selling?" That's like, "Okay, let's get the lease signed."
yeah.
But I said to them, I'm like, "I love this because New York is there's a lot of big players in New York. It's hard to stand out." And then you go to a market like this with a really compelling development and not a lot of supply. And if you get the right product market fit and the right deal, which you're helping them with, then, I think it's a cool opportunity.
Yeah, and part of that again is understanding market dynamics, right?
Yeah.
Understanding how Regis is doing in that market, being like they're 100% in this
They're
crappy
cool.
product. I mean,
Yep.
we can offer something that's compelling, and there's continued development and growth and all these things, and so I think you could pretty much find that in many markets across the country. It's just, again, it all goes back to that science meets art, right?
Yep.
And really understanding. A lot of times the science tells a really good picture, but consensuses and stuff like that. How often does the census come out, right? So you're like, okay, you're going off of estimates prior to this new development or this new, corporation moving there, or I mean, even, new flights and stuff like that. Because a lot of people that do business that go in these spaces are going, how easy is it to get to the airport? How easy is it to get it? That's what I love about Dallas. I can get anywhere within like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding a lot of those dynamics often makes a big difference for people's overall business plan
Yep.
and success.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, Gio.
Well, I'm glad we had this conversation, and
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to really capitalize on having more substantial conversations with people
Yep.
about what there is that they need from us, and really from other, because it's not just us. It's
Yep.
how do we
Takes a
connect
village.
people with Very and OFS and
Yep.
the census and Yardi and all kind. We could next it. I mean, we keep going through and the entire list of how we can connect people. I mean, and we've seen it. I mean, Preferred Office Networks, big win last year with that big corporation that we're not allowed to talk about, but placing them in 400 different locations. And it's funny, I've talked to so many operators. I'm like, I don't know if you heard, but they're like, oh yeah, they put them in our space. And I'm like, that's freaking all. I mean,
Nice.
it's been a half dozen different groups that I've talked to over the last few weeks. They're like, yeah, we were actually part of that. So kudos to Caroline and Michelle and the entire team over there on that success. But we're going to continue to see that. No Instance changing their model up a bit. More to come from that as they release that. But I think there's just different people are getting creative on the offerings this year. And so excited to see how we can all collaborate and partner up to just continue making this industry flourish.
Agreed. Yeah. And I'm excited for more exciting guests on the podcast this year. Yeah.
For sure. More surprises.
More surprises. Surprises are fun. Okay. Till next time.
Take care.